Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar this afternoon. My name is Sally Reynolds and I'm delighted to be moderating the session this afternoon. This is the fifth in our TeaMLit's series of webinars. This one is specifically on pre-service teacher training in Europe and beyond. So we're delighted to have you joining us this afternoon, and thank you so much too. It's good to see so many familiar faces joining as well. So just before we get started, a couple of practical things. First of all, please keep your microphones off unless you're speaking, but do leave your cameras on if you can. It's always nice to see people and to see where you are. We will be making the presentations that are shown this afternoon available afterwards, and we're also making a recording of the session this afternoon. So that means that you don't need to keep notes. We'll be able to provide you with the PowerPoints afterwards. Feel free to use the chat in Zoom to say hello, to make comments, to ask questions. I hope we'll have a really lively session this afternoon. And so just to kind of give you a quick overview of who will be joining us this afternoon. We're going to start with 3 presentations of specific experiences in pre-service teacher training. The first one from our good friend and colleague, Lina Pranaityte from HSE, that's the Heidelberg School of Education in Germany, on developing a critical media literacy online module. She'll be followed then by Dr. Charo Sádaba Chalezquer from the University of Navarra in Spain on pre-service teacher training in Spain. And then we're delighted to be joined this afternoon by Dr. RobbGrieco from the Sacred Heart University in the US, who has got up not too early, I think, today. I think it's not too bad to join us to talk about his work and his long experience in providing in-service teacher training in media literacy. So after that, we're going to have a breakout session. So the breakout session means that we'll have 3 separate breakout rooms where you can join in one of our 3 speakers. If you'd like to ask them any further questions, follow up on any of the discussion, you're more than welcome to go into one of the 3 rooms. It'll be open for everybody to join whichever session they'd like to. And then we'll come back after that for a discussion, final words and a wrap up at about 3:10, and we'll finish by 3:15 CET Brussels time this afternoon. So that's essentially the agenda for the session this afternoon. And Chloe is just going to show us as well, just a reminder of TeaMLit. This is the project which in fact many of us are involved with around teacher training, teacher trainers in digital and media literacy. So this is an 18-month project, sadly coming to an end in June this year. So we're into the final 6 months of the project at the moment. It's funded by the European Media and Information Fund, as you can see, and you can see the list of partners on screen. So it's led by ourselves here in MLA. We're also delighted to be joined by our colleagues from Croatia, from the Association for Communication and Media Culture, Heidelberg School of Education, MediaWise here in Flanders, Belgium, DCU, that's the Institute for Future Media, Democracy and Society in Ireland, and the Finnish Society on Media Education. And it's lovely to see lots of our partners with us this afternoon. So you can see the main activities of the project here on screen as well. The first one is a research review and analysis work package, and that is essentially looking at the status of media education in Europe and beyond. So the second report was published recently. I strongly advise you to have a look at it. It's available on our website. We'll give you the link shortly. The second main activity work package is called The Network. That's led by our colleagues in Croatia. And that's all about building a network of people involved in teacher education, in digital media literacy. And that meets regularly and has lots of activities going on at the moment. So if you're not a member, please consider joining. And then the third area of main activity is the repository, where we are gathering various resources and materials that are useful for teacher trainers. And we also are creating our own. And at the very end of the session today, we're going to give you a trailer because we're really delighted our first module is now available. So we're happy to tell you more about that towards the end of the session. So stay with us till the end and we'll tell you more about that. We're also testing out practice scenarios with the network. So activities, materials, resources that have worked in one place, testing them out somewhere else just to see how transferable they are. So they're the main activities of the project. If you don't know us by now, please join us. We're always happy to have people join the network and take part in the various events and activities that we organise. So I think I've taken up enough of everybody's time. Let me go then immediately to Lina, who's going to kick off the session this afternoon with her presentation. Lina. Almost there, Lina. Yes, you're good to go now. You need to switch on your mic and then you're fine. Just go back. You were showing us full screen a moment ago. Go back to it. That's it. Perfect. On with your mic.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So happy spring to everyone in Europe, joining from all corners from me. Thank you, Sally and Chloe, for the invitation and for kind introduction. And my name is Lina Pranaityte. I'm joining you and beaming in from the Heidelberg School of Education in Germany today. And as a scientific coordinator and a postdoctoral researcher, I will present on our development of the critical media literacy online module for pre-service teacher educators and education. Okay, and it's not moving. Just a sec. Let me try out several buttons. And then
Okay.
I have to stop.
Just go back to the other one, maybe.
Yeah. Sorry for the difficulties.
It's okay, Lina. It was working perfectly earlier, as we said.
Exactly. Yeah.
Try full screen
Great.
again. Yeah.
So in our 15 minutes together, I will go with you together over 4 points. First, I will position our institution within the German educational system. Then I will introduce you briefly what we think critical media literacy could stand for, and have you a little bit of a peek inside into the online module. So teacher education in Germany could be only described as complicated, but then again, show me the country where it isn't. It is as in a big institution. Again, sorry, it is not working for some reason. Okay, it is happening in 122 universities within Germany. It is differentiated between schools, levels, school types, levels, subjects, and lands. And pre-service part is organized separately and not by the universities. So within such a big country, it means that education is in an administrative and political responsibility of each individual federal state in Germany, and there are 16 in total of them. And this results in structural and content-related differences between the lands. So in my presentation, I will speak about one land, which is called Baden-Württemberg, and that you see in the map. Teacher education in Baden-Württemberg is happening in 26 universities and universities of education, which are called Pädagogische Hochschulen. And some researchers have actually defined it as fragmented and rather homeless at times, which is why in some researchers have called it homeless, and that is what ended in the state of Germany, giving quite a nice lump sum of money to increase that quality of education for teachers in its universities. This is how Heidelberg School of Education came about to live. So that means it's an institution that is has applied for that money from about 8 years ago, and it's in a competitive and rather project-related manner, and ended up at the end of this funding period as an institution that will remain as part of 2 universities, which will aim to put teacher education onto the table on various occasions. One of the tasks that Heidelberg School of Education has is not only to combine subject science, subject didactics, and educational science in its work, it also offers qualifications in the topics that might not appear in subject-specific studies. And media education is part of that. In 2016, media education has been defined as one of 6 guiding perspectives to be applied in all school types at all levels throughout the curricular and in an integrated manner across all subjects. This means that media education can actually be found in education plans that are offered by the state, in textbooks that are offered to schools, and in peer-to-peer exchange, particularly through mentoring practices in Germany. And it continues to be offered in continuous professional development offers. What about pre-service teacher education, one might ask? Well, and that is where the answer sometimes is complicated and it depends comes into place. It depends on institutions and teacher educators. So in our work at the Heidelberg School of Education, we have put media education as something that is of relevance. It is one of the topics that is important for teacher educators within this institution, but they are not obligated to take it. So that means that it is a supplementary qualification certificate offer that we can suggest to our students. But before the pandemic, we decided that not only students need some sort of guidance in media education, but also teacher educators at our universities who might not be willing for different reasons to incorporate this topic into their teaching. So we thought maybe we should come up with an online module that could be used by students as well as teacher educators. And in our cooperation with Teachers College Columbia University in New York, we saw that to different disciplinary scholars, a critical media literacy made a lot of sense. So as I said, we started slightly before the pandemic, and we had numerous meetings online, and once the pandemic was over, at least once per year in person. This has helped us a little bit to define what critical media literacy actually means to us and why do we find it important. So for one, if one should define this framework in just 3 slides, so it would be that for one, critical media literacy tries to expand the notion of literacy. We read and write not only with numbers and letters, but with multimodal forms, media forms. It also deepens critical analysis in that it promotes critical inquiry into media text through various questions that have theoretical background, but we ask our future teachers to, so to say, come armed with questions. Who created it? Why is this media text acceptable? To whom does it advantage or disadvantage? What is missing? And so on. An ultimate goal of it is, of course, to empower our students and scholars to be active and responsible citizens, especially through the production of media, because in that step, we believe, lies the power not only to apply what they have learned, but also to see that every step in media creation is a choice, and that choice can be made differently. So once we have in our group defined that this critical media literacy framework is a lens that can be applied of reading various forms of messages in media, how can we translate this transversal topic actually into an online module into different subjects and school types? We actually started in a very unconventional way while trying to do that. So we first asked scholars and educators in our institutions who find this framework relevant in their subjects, which ended up that we have a rather transdisciplinary group, which ranges from various disciplines that might not necessarily be related to the traditional understanding of media education. This also means that we have tapped into resources that are also outside academia, because our scholars like to collaborate with students and involve their input as well as teachers. And since this initiative is actually something that we cannot pay or financially support, apart from maybe events that we organize, we actually asked the contributors to this online module, what is it that they already have in their pockets? Not necessarily what could they create for the online module, but what do they have that actually comes across really as inquiry process that students like, or something that leaves an impression that they could offer to our online module. In this way, we actually so far, which is just two units within this online module have been already launched this past October, but others are still in creation, and the topics are really varied. So we have something like an introductory unit on critical media literacy, another unit on critical film analysis, image manipulation, games, data literacy for climate action, artificial intelligence, conversation analysis, critical thinking and sexuality education and porn analysis, hip-hop, and etc. During our meetings and workshops, we actually also tried to film our colleagues and their contributions to the online module. And since we needed to work with the learning platforms that are, in the German case, rather dull and boring, like we needed a package of this online module that we can actually export and import into two institutions and two different learning management systems. We opted for an H5P interactive book module, which we found could work maybe best in our case, transatlantic case, because it also combines various elements that H5P can offer in terms of text, video, audio, and other formats. Here is a snippet of a critical film analysis unit. One of our professors here at the Heidelberg University, together with his student, has actually put the whole semester course into this H5P. The scope is, of course, the biggest so far, and other activities are not that big in scope and length as the whole semester, but might be just 1 hour or maybe 5 or 6 hours of materials to go through. One of our colleagues has shared that her students really like the interactive elements in it. For example, the pop-up boxes, the flip cards, also the quizzes right after some information, discuss information, or drag and drops. And the students really liked not long texts that are usually put in PDF formats in Moodle, but rather flip through them in a kind of presentation mode, as well as appreciated the reflective parts that they can actually write and export onto their computers after that. So what this process, still one online module in process for us so far is that it reflects the transdisciplinary character of our initiative as well as work. It is rather interactive. It is for self-paced learning for students, but it's also unique in that it is also for teacher educators' use. So we are actually suggesting to our teacher educators to see what we have. Maybe something could fit into what they are doing, what they are teaching, maybe parts of it. Maybe this would be a pedagogical inspiration for them. Maybe something that they can rely on in their planning. There are still some to-dos for us to do. So one is the translation between German and English, feedback collection from the parts that have already went into circulation amongst students, to assure the quality of it and to develop it further, and also not least, but very important, to research it. So here are the 4 parts that I promised to take you through. And with this, I would like to say thank you and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Lina. And we will share your presentation afterwards. And Chloe also put the link into the to where that you can see the module. So any questions for Lina? I see there's a question in from Bella. Bella, good to have you with us. It's difficult to speak about things such as AI and sex, not only online. How do you handle it, Lina?
So with the sexuality education, it's actually very interesting, as we tried another approach actually within this online module in this transdisciplinary and transatlantic activity. So first, we actually collected people who are interested in this topic and teach it. So we have started with workshops, and through those workshop developments and annual meetings, we try to develop that unit that is growing and developing. So it's not developing materials and units, but rather that And it is indeed a very politicized topic, especially when we think of two different contexts, the German and the US American, where I think there are much more sensitivity around this topic. But we see that actually for our future teachers, regardless of what subjects they will teach, this is the topic that they actually want and need, and actually don't get any guidance. Or even those teachers who are about to teach, which is in Germany, for example, biology teachers, they are actually leaving the university without any content on this topic. So
extraordinary.
Expressive, yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Bella.
you.
Thank you, Bella. Okay, I think if you don't mind, we're going to move on. Lina will be in a room in 20 minutes, a half an hour or so. So if you would like to have any further questions with her, then you are more than welcome. Meanwhile, we're going to move to another part of Europe now. We're going to go with Charo to the situation in Spain. Over to you, Charo.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sally. And also I would like to start thanking both Sally and Chloe for the invitation to take part of this seminar. Just sharing my full screen. Yeah, that's
Perfect.
You can see
Yep,
right
thank
now.
you.
Okay, so first thing I have to say is that my background is communication science. So I'm not an expert on education, but in the last years, for the last 20 years, more or less, I have been working on how children and teenagers have been developing with these digital technologies mainly, and lately, mainly since the EDMO hubs started also in media education. So I am looking at the phenomena from the user's perspective, more or less. So I have been jumping from and to education and how media, in this case, media education is implemented or not in schools. So this is my perspective. Probably some of you can point out something that I'm not very sure about, but I will try to answer everything. So in any case, I'm going to share with you some ideas about the state of pre-service teaching training in Spain. Probably with some similarities. I was happy to hear from Lina before that some of the ideas are quite similar in Spain and in Germany. So let me just start with a small graph to show you how this works in Spain. So in Spain, we have two paths. If you want to be a teacher for pre-elementary or primary education, you should go to the university and get your degree on child education. This is new for the pre-elementary education, new for the last 10 years. Until then, it was not a university degree, what you needed to be a teacher at pre-elementary school. But at the moment, both levels required a university degree. If you want to be a teacher for at secondary education, you also need a university degree in education, pedagogy, or any other subject that you would like to take. But then it's mandatory, it's compulsory to take a master for teachers. So it implies that it's a 1 year more of education for this particular group of teachers. So this is how it works in Spain at the moment. And some other particularities in our case, the teaching regulation, at least for the pre-elementary and elementary primary school, the regulation, it's very vague and open when explaining the skills that are required for a teacher for these levels, for both the pre-elementary and primary education. So it's very vague, it's very open, and as in the case of, I think that I understood in the case of Germany, it depends on each university plan, how they define this vague or very big or broad skill in their own curricula. The real thing is that subjects related to media education are scarce in the best of the cases. Some cases it doesn't exist or it's an optional course. And what they say is that it's a transversal issue in other courses, but not really as a specific subject in this university degrees. It's also interesting to say that if in Spain, there is a combined responsibility, both national and regional governments have something to say regarding curricula. Not the higher education curricula, but the schools curricula. So in that, it can explain, and yeah, at some extent, this vagueness, because it's perhaps for a regional government is a very important issue, but for the national government is a more secondary question to attend. The real thing, or the most concrete thing I can say about this is that most of the curricula for teachers, when they contemplate media education, when they do that is not the most general issue or the most general situation, they usually focus on the analysis of information and cognitive aspects, but not, they are not so explicit or so deep when dealing with questions as critical thinking or emotional aspects regarding also media education. And also, it's true that in the last 20 years, media education has been second plate for most of the curricula. So there is something more important than media education. And I'm not discussing that, but it's the real question. And when the issue is implemented in the curricula for teachers training, the focus is instrumental. So how to use media resources, or in the last years, digital technologies on the classrooms or something like that. So I was impressed, impressed when I was preparing this presentation. I looked for this is the result of a research conducted by the EU Kids Online team in Spain. And one of the questions they asked the children, in this case, children and adolescents in Spain, is how, in which extent teachers are a referent when they are using, in this particular case, digital technologies. And the main data, is that the teachers are not, I was particularly impressed by the last item. Say, my teacher has helped me in the past when something bothered me on the internet. And the total is that just for the 11% of children and teenagers, that was something that the answer was yes. So and you can already see the other data. My teacher has encouraged me to discover and learn things on the internet. That's almost 30% of children say that that's the case. And also, if the professors have or not some rules to use the online world on the classroom, that's the highest score. But in any case, we can see a gap, at least in the digital world or in the digital sphere, when the children are looking at their professors or the teachers and say, okay, teachers are not really a referent for this age group. So according, this is also some results of research that I'm going to introduce you in a couple of minutes. So regarding these dimensions of media literacy that are quite consistent in Spain, at least Ferrez and Pisitelli are two authors that are well known here in the Spanish-speaking environment, and they propose these 6 dimensions that any media literacy curricula should include. Language, how to, the knowledge about using codes and produce audio or audiovisual messages. The second dimension would be the production and the diffusion processes, and to understand how products, mass media products or media products are are built, then the interaction processes regarding these processes that are activated when a media is received, media message is received, the ideology and values, reading and critical use, and understanding what the messages are trying to spread. Aesthetics also, it's also one of the dimensions of a media, of a wishful thinking, ideal media literacy curricula, extracting pleasure and the production of attractive media messages, and technology, the use of tools enable media communication. So those are the 6 dimensions of an ideal media literacy curricula. The real thing is that when these authors, Hoyos and Gutierrez, made a cross research on more than almost 200 teaching courses to future teachers that were somehow dealing with media literacy, and the 2 most relevant dimensions in these courses were the technology and language, and in particular technology. 60% of those courses included some reference to how to use tools enabling media communication, and 20% of those courses included a reference to language, how to use codes or different the different languages that you can use when creating some kind of message. So that's the real thing that the teachers, future teachers, are learning at university level, that the most important dimension of media literacy is technology. So this is the starting point. But the second thing that these authors discovered, they apart from this revision of the curricula, they also made some interviews, and in the interviews they discovered that while technology was also very important, in the interviews the most important dimension was the ideology and values. So these interviews were to teachers already on the practice, no teachers on future teachers, students of education. So there is a gap also on what the teachers consider the most important dimension, that is the ideology in this case, and what they are receiving as students at the university level. So there are several gaps here that we should be aware of, and we should cross in future actions. So this is just what are the possible solutions to these gaps, or in order to cross these gaps. So I would say the first one is just to link theory and practice. So what teachers are saying that they consider most important in the classroom is different to what they are receiving when they are going through the university. And also it's important for these future teachers, when they are the pre-service teachers, to receive examples of from the practice, not just from theoretical perspective. Also to reduce the gap between what the students take from the classroom and what they do methodologically with technologies once they are already at school level. Also the importance of combining analysis and media production. So it's in order just to really take care of this ideological and even the emotional dimension of and the critical thinking development of the future students. And probably the most important thing to make all these things happen is that we need, at least in Spanish context, we need a more active role of education authorities in defining and managing what a pre-service teaching curricula should be regarding media education. We are at the moment in a very critical moment where misinformation and disinformation is a real problem, as in supposing for all of us. And media literacy is part of the answer, a collective answer, an institutional and corporative answer to this big problem. So we need a more active and stance by the authorities to define and perhaps being not so open and more concrete in what kind of content, knowledge, and dimensions should be present in the training of the future teachers. And also regarding this, not only future teachers, this is a pre-service teaching seminar, I know, but also in the life learning teaching for teachers already in practice, it could be also a good point to consider how to, instead of going for an instrumental perspective, going a bit deeper to how to develop critical thinking and how to also include other dimensions as the most emotional one. So this is my approach. I will be more than happy to answer any question.
Thank you very much, Charo. That's a really interesting overview of the Spanish situation. I think it's probably, we see it replicated in other countries as well too. I think lots of people are probably nodding. And it's interesting taking the research backwards from what actually students experience in the classroom and to be able to reflect that back directly. Anybody got any questions at this stage for Charo? Please. From Lina, but it's still under development at the moment. But I think it's a case of staying tuned and we'll be able to keep you up to date with that. Bella, yes?
Yes, Charo, thank you very much for your fruitful presentation. I just want to understand, is there any model you can share with us? Or is just introduction of all of activity of media literacy in Spain?
I just present some research that has been done in Spain at the moment regarding how media literacy is included in pre-service teaching curricula.
Oh,
so that's,
thank you.
Yeah, so it's like a state of the art at the moment. So it's true that in this particular moment there is a big debate about how these curricula should be improved. So I will be more than happy to discuss this perhaps in the briefing in the room later on, or even after this session. There is nothing new from the legal perspective that I think is very important, because at the end this is the legislation is the one who marks what should be included in a curricula or not. But there is a lot of debate at the moment. I have been also myself taking part of some discussions at the governmental level, national governmental level, suggesting things that should be included in this curricula.
Just for me, it looks so ideal. So I'm asking, probably you have some models. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Thanks to you.
Thank you, Bella. Indeed, if you come across any good examples from Spain as well, Charo, feel free to share with us where you think that there is a college maybe doing a good job. We're always glad to kind of share that with people. Look, thank you very much. You'll be with us for the breakout, and then we'd like to go to our third speaker now. So I'm delighted to be welcoming Michael RobbGrieco, who comes all the way from the Sacred Heart University in the States, and he's going to talk us through his approach and give us a feeling of the experience in the US. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Charo and Lina and Chloe, and especially Sally for inviting me to join in this conversation this afternoon for you, this morning for me. I'm coming to you from Sacred Heart University in Connecticut in the US, where I'm an assistant professor of teacher education, specializing in secondary English language arts, with undergraduate and graduate pre-service teacher candidates. Today, I'll share about how and why I've worked to implement media literacy in K-12 schools by hitching wagons, using our Sacred Heart Pioneers American metaphor here, to other school reform initiatives. And I'll discuss how that work in schools informs my current work in teacher education, integrating media literacy pedagogy across our curriculum here at Sacred Heart. So to begin, I want to talk, as my colleagues did, about the U.S. context for and trends in teacher education and media literacy really briefly. In most U.S. pre-service teacher education at the college or university level, we prepare students for certification to work in public schools. Here that means publicly funded, democratically governed K-12 schools for students age 5 to 18. And since I'm speaking to an international and predominantly European group of educators, it's important to emphasize how K-12 public schools in the U.S. are primarily governed locally at the district level. I think I heard Lina mention like 16 region states in Germany that govern. We have like close to 15,000 school districts. And there is some state control. I'll get to that in a second. So education it is primarily at the district level. A city, town, or county controls the school hiring, budgets, and approves the curriculum. So we're very decentralized. And rarely do initiatives in the U.S. disseminate from the national down to local levels cleanly, at least. U.S. states and federal government exert influence on local control by funding particular initiatives. For example, making grant monies available to schools for improving academic proficiencies, for implementing interventions for struggling students, or for improving teachers' capacity to meet students' social emotional needs. So as a school administrator seeking to promote media literacy in my K-12 districts, where I directed curriculum for the past 8 years in Vermont, state in the United States, I needed to rely on local innovation and momentum, or, which was rare as it is as it sounds anywhere else, or to hitch my media literacy wagon to another already established school reform initiative to fund in-service teacher training. So as far as teacher education in the U.S., we operate sort of at the intersection of current innovations in theory and research, and the requirements for preparing pre-service teachers for state licensure, which, to my knowledge, don't include media literacy anywhere, and in the States, and then the realities of school needs, which often aren't seen in relation to media literacy, except where we have fiery local advocates. So meanwhile, in the US, we continue to follow the historical trend of chasing the hot media trend or crisis of the day. We're obsessed now with AI and algorithms, and given our recurrent presidential candidates, fake news still. In the 2010s, it was the delights and dangers of social media, still ongoing. 2000s, information access and overload with the internet. In the 90s, the youth media violence, so-called epidemic. My historical work in media literacy has led me to question whether this constant positioning of media literacy in relation to emerging media alarm or optimism leaves the field without a strong foundation. So instead of jumping on the bandwagon of quickly shifting media trends, I've been hitching my wagon to more sustained school reform initiatives. So there are some reasons to integrate media literacy with existing school improvement initiatives that have to do with school structures. It's very difficult to initiate standalone courses in the US in an already overcrowded curriculum. And where this might happen, like in library media courses, it's inadequate because they're infrequent or they're structured as electives that only reach a small percentage of students. And within content area, teachers already complain of overcrowded curricula, initiative fatigue, So when presented as a new initiative of its own, media literacy faces significant resistance and competes with other professional learning priorities for teachers. And of course, established initiatives have funding incentives from state and federal governments. So I've been looking at the major initiatives in my state of Vermont when I was directing curriculum there and how they connected with national initiatives that access grant funds for professional learning. And I can go into any of these in more detail for the sake of time, so we have more discussion time with our presenters. I'll focus on the one that worked the best, which was hitching wagons with personalized learning. Personalized learning has been required in Vermont and other states in the form of a student portfolio of learning goals, career aspirations, and artifacts demonstrating the application of transferable skills. And since media literacy competencies overlap with 21st century soft skills, this has been the most promising initiative. Personalized learning initiatives have led to increased interest in research and project-based learning, also highly compatible with media literacy pedagogy. And so around 2018, 2019, before the pandemic, we trained our teachers in project-based learning to inform the development of students' personalized learning plans and portfolios. And all of that culminated in a J-term program of student interest-driven mini courses. And that's what's linked here in the slideshow. Oh, I might not have shared that at the top. I meant to share in the chat if I can see it. These are my slides. It has some links to these things within them, and they'll be posted on the website eventually as well for this webinar series. But this J-term program was co-developed with students using project-based learning and media literacy pedagogies, and the idea was that this co-curricular, sort of outside the core curriculum that everybody participated in, would become a gateway for teachers to begin integrating project-based learning and media literacy into their core courses through the personalized learning initiative. Then the pandemic happened and teachers had no bandwidth for the demanding work, which is a common story everywhere. So we shifted to social emotional learning and media literacy. Teachers wanted to address impacts of the pandemic on student motivation, and seeing how even emphases on established initiatives can shift with disruptions like the pandemic. I sought to weave media literacy into our strategic plan, which is here on the left, and a new vision and mission in our district, which is there on the right. Of course, without calling it media literacy, so it wouldn't sound like a new additional initiative. And we had a broad coalition of stakeholders that established these transferable skills you see on our trailhead signpost on the right, and that embed media literacy competencies and personalized learning practices, with which we had integrated media literacy pedagogies in prior and ongoing in-service teacher training. So this provides ongoing opportunities for district leaders and teachers to pursue media literacy training aligned with strategic plans and the district vision for student success. Which brings me to how this connects to my work in my first year in teacher education at the university level, where I've had an opportunity to integrate media literacy pedagogy into my courses. As professor of English education in the department, I have had leeway to revise the methods and curriculum courses for secondary English pre-service teachers as I see fit. So I've adjusted those courses to include readings and resources that show media literacy pedagogy in action, that model approaches to curriculum design and media literacy, and that position media literacy key principles and practices as essential to secondary English classrooms through position statements by national organizations. So most importantly, I engaged my English teacher candidates in media literacy learning activities as students. As teacher education research has shown that pre-service teachers are unlikely to implement teaching practices that they had not experienced and valued as learners themselves. I think this is the most common way media literacy is embedded in teacher education in the US now, by motivated individual professors integrating media literacy into the courses they design or into the aspect of their course content that they control, like readings, resources, assignments, and class activities. So the other place that we often see media literacy show up is in a standalone tech integration course that's required in most states to meet certification and licensure requirements. This is sort of hit or miss because it competes with assistive technology, universal design for learning, and simply using tools to engage students. So media literacy doesn't have much room in those courses. The question is, should we try to make those courses more media literacy focused or not? And then maybe how does media literacy relate to those existing topics that those courses cover? For me, where I am now, I am looking at, based on my experience as a in-service teacher educator, transferring those lessons learned from integrating and hitching my wagon with existing school reform initiatives to look at how curriculum is developing in our department now, how it develops in teacher education in general in the US, which at Sacred Heart right now, we're doing a curriculum audit of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We have principles and goals related to this initiative that are documented now, and we've earned that through professional learning that our whole department has done with outside consultants from another university. So do we need to do a similar process with media literacy? It seems unlikely to me that that'll happen. So the more likely thing to me seems to hitch media literacy wagon to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, to look at the practices we've identified, like tapping into students' cultural assets and identities, and show how media literacy can help pursue and achieve our goals in those areas. And that's kind of the work that I'm currently engaged in at Sacred Heart. And so a question I'd love to discuss further with anyone is how you hitch your wagons to teacher education initiatives in your country and region. And that's my presentation.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you. A really good question to finish us up with. I'm just asking if there are any questions that people have themselves based on your presentation. Just checking. I don't think there's anything specifically right now, but that question that you've just put, just screening down here, sorry, it takes a moment. That question that you just put about how can you, okay, Maya, thank you very much. I see you've come in. How do you study impacts of the media literacy program? The inevitable evaluation impact question.
Right. And so we would, well, when you're hitching the wagon to other initiatives, you're looking at the outcomes, synthesized with
that context, yeah.
Other contexts. So we're looking to see, when we did it in these schools and didn't do it in these schools, like how do those outcomes compare? Renee Hobbs did a study that was published. Her book that I flashed up there, Reading the Media in High School English, had a quasi-experimental study that did this in terms of impact on sort of traditional English language arts outcomes when you had a media literacy themed English course in high school English, compared in a quasi-experimental study to another site that did not have that. So those are the kinds of ways that we would do. We would take how we're assessing the impact of personalized learning and show how media literacy has been integrated in one place in the intervention and not in another, and try and discuss those impacts that way. And I'm really excited to try and do that now that I'm on this side of the fence again.
Yeah, of course. Anybody want to take up that on what do we hitch? What wagons can we hitch media literacy to in different parts? I mean, at the moment, the main wagon we're hitched to is the fact checking fight against disinformation. I mean, that is what is driving so much of the funding and so much of the concerns at a political level here in Europe. That's the wagon we're all hitched to at the moment. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, or would you have any thoughts about that?
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to take a break. Not take a break. We're going to have our 3 different breakout rooms now. So it's up to everybody. We have about 10 minutes, and you can choose who you would like to go and have a chat to. And once you're there, we will, up to yourselves, how you'd like to talk, share, whatever. And then we'll all come back in about 10 minutes time back to the main room. I just want to have a quick round, maybe if there's any just thoughts from our 3 speakers from the 3 rooms they'd like to share. And of course, you're all very welcome if you have any questions which you feel didn't get answered, to put them into the chat now. Lina, maybe I could come to you first. Any thoughts, feedback you'd like to share based on the discussion you've just had or the Q&A you've just had?
It was a very pleasant exchange with some colleagues, and that actually we are working in the same project, but sometimes we don't even get the chance to exchange such details from our everyday work. So the questions were really more about how often do we create units or modules, or what are the rates or the evaluations that we collect. So more technical things about the online module.
We're all smiling at Iglika's message. We'll have breakouts for the rest of the afternoon. Afraid not. Charo, any?
I don't know. This comment came from our breaking room because it was mid sentence almost. The session ended, and we were having a very interesting, interchange of ideas regarding how the content is probably more important than the form. How are you receiving content? And sometimes the media literacy exercise are much more focused on the form you are receiving instead of content. Yeah. And this is a challenge that Paula pointed out, and I think that is very, very relevant. Yeah. So we didn't reach any conclusion because we were sent to this.
Don't worry. We intended it just as an opportunity to ask any remaining questions.
It was great. It was really great.
Yeah. Michael, any last thoughts from you?
I appreciated the question about a current, very recent trend in some legislation at the state levels in media literacy, that and whether, I think it was Lucia asked, like whether that is influencing teacher education, which the answer to my knowledge is not yet. In emerging ways, we're trying at the Media Education Lab to sort of guide those conversations so that they're not just implementation at K-12, but also that universities are providing pre-service teachers with opportunities as well. I love the question from Maya about studying impacts that came up, and we had a little mini talk about that. And Amit asked about networks of teachers, to which I wanted to close on saying, like, the National Association for Media Literacy Educators in the United States is a great organization that needs to grow and needs to learn from your European organizations. I know we have members that do connect with you all that we learn from, but presenting over here and online in those forums would be a great benefit for teacher educators. So,
and believe me,
Thanks,
Michael, and believe me, it's vice versa. We learn lots as well from our friends and colleagues across the water. So thank you so much. We just promised we do something before the end, and we really would like to do that. And that is that we have now launched our, starting to launch the new TeaMLit modules. And so Chloe is going to play for us the teaser. So Chloe, let it go. Hope the sound is enabled.
Games, newspapers, social media. We use a lot of media. We live in a mediatized world and we rely on media a lot. So from a young age on, you should be media literate. But how?
How can you, as a teacher, teach media literacy? How do you support your colleagues in media literacy education? And how do you involve the whole school community?
We've got 5 online modules to help you to get started with videos, background information, and exercises. Completely free of charge for every teacher, whether you are a beginner or an experienced one.
So that is to launch and to get us started with our modules that have been created by our friends and colleagues in MediaWays. So thank you so much, Jeroen and Bert. And we really hope that everybody is going to enjoy these modules and use them, give us lots of feedback. They are part of the, they are essentially the last part, if you like, of the production process of the TeaMLit project. And you will find them all as they're launched. They're being launched one after the other on the address that you see on the screen. That's pretty much all we have time for this afternoon. Our next webinar is coming up. We have the last one in our TeaMLit's series, which is taking place on the 24th of April, so in a month's time. Please sign up and join us for that. And then our final webinar this academic year, the Wednesday webinar series on media literacy, will be on promoting MIL and youth citizen journalism through mobile stories. So join us for a really, really nice product, really nice service that's been developed with European Commission funding, and we're very happy to share it. And apart from that, stay tuned for more information. You know we love to hear from you. Look forward to seeing you next time. I'd really like to thank our speakers today. It's been great having you with us, Michael. We hope that you will join us again across the water. And of course, Charo, thank you. And Lina, thank you so much for your input as well. And thank you to my good friend and colleague, Chloe, who makes it all happen. And enjoy spring. If you're in a spring-like country, here in Belgium, it's got very springish. So enjoy it. Bye-bye now.